What do you do when a customer walks out the door and never comes back? What's up, guys? Marshall here. And customers walking out the door is not necessarily a topic business owners like to talk about. But as you're going to hear on this episode, we can promise you the ones who are placing a real priority on how to get those customers back, they are the ones who are winning. And we know just how you can put your business on the winning team where it belongs. Welcome to episode 95 of the Serial Progress Seeker podcast. Let's go.
Welcome to the Serial Progress Seeker podcast, where we share blueprints for building an unconventional life. Each week, we conduct expert interviews, talk strategies, and share advice for escaping the 9-to-5 and building a life where you are free to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want, all while making an excellent living. Okay, Serial Progress Seekers, let's get started with the show.
All right, guys, I got to tell you, one of my favorite things about getting together with you every week on this podcast is that our topics tend to kind of ebb and flow. We kind of go all over the place. Sometimes we get in these real personal conversations and have some deep connections. And sometimes, man, we need to get down to business and we need to talk to people about how we operate our business, because we do have a lot of our audience that want to come to us and ask us questions about how they go about doing certain things. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because there's a question that we get a lot at our support desk and within different pieces of software that we work with. And that is, how on earth do I bring customers back that have left me? And we're talking about customer reactivation, right? It's something maybe that doesn't get focused on, I feel like, as much as it should. And we've talked about it before, because it can be so easy as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, to really focus on how do I get new people through the door, right? That can be such a heavy focus. And so much so that we can sometimes really forget how important it is to reach back to some of those folks that are left. Number one, so we can find out why they left. But number two, so we can, maybe give them a little tap on the shoulder and say, hey, make sure you come check us out. So, when we talked about customer reactivation, Ben, I'll throw it over to you first, buddy. Let's just right out of the gate, you start thinking about customer reactivation. What does that kind of strike? What kind of chord does that strike for you?
Well, one of the hardest things about customer reactivation for entrepreneurs, especially new entrepreneurs, is in the beginning, it's not even a conversation that ever comes into your mind, for good reason, because you don't have customers to reactivate. It's super easy. So the idea is the first year to 2 years of your business, your focus has to be new customer acquisition, because that's it. That's the only customers you're going to have. And so the problem is we get into habits. Our habit is okay, what is the thing that makes my business go? What is the thing that makes my business survive? In the first 1 to 2 to 3 years, it is pretty much 100% just getting people through the door. The problem is it is absolutely the most expensive way to run a business, is to be completely focused on getting people in the door the first time. A new customer is the hardest customer to get going and to get built up to a spot to where they want to come back to you. But we get in those habits. And I think even some seasoned entrepreneurs, when they start a new business, sometimes get in that. And then you have some people that never leave the new customer acquisition business. That's it. The whole ball game is just constantly doing that. And so the amount of money that gets left on the table when you are just focused on that is unreal, because most of the money that you have coming into your business is going to come from customers that are coming back more often, customers that are coming back and spending more money every time they do come back. And listen, that's not to say that if you have a business where you are completely focused on bringing new customers in, that you're not going to accidentally have some of that happening. And, it's just part of having a business. But when you start shifting your focus from that process of, having to generate new customers all the time, and you really start leaning more into and putting more of a percentage of your time into getting your existing customers to come back more often, that's when you really start to see a huge shift in what you're doing. This is the perfect example, Serial Progress Seeker. The first few years of Serial Progress Seeker, or what would become Serial Progress Seeker, we were just focused on new customers. And it was absolutely exhausting, the things that I had to do to get people through the door the first time, and for people to know I was here. Because this was not a business that was just local. This was a business where I had local customers. This is a business where I had customers in the next state over. This was a business where I had customers clear on the other side of the world. But getting that attention and finding all that out was absolutely exhausting. It was a never ending thing to get in that position. And so that's where I was. But there was something that happened along the way where I started to realize the power of, what I had. And, I hate to be the guy that's always bringing this up, but thank goodness I checked the box that said collect an email address, every time someone buys from me. It's one of those things. And then one day you look up and you realize, oh, cool. So I've got these contacts. You don't do anything with them. It's just your list, right? So in the beginning, you're like, well, this is that one thing that I do in my business that generates new customers. And all the way over here, you've got this list that's constantly building of all your existing customers, whether it's phone numbers or email addresses or physical addresses. But most businesses don't do anything with that. And that's the thing. I think the point of where we really want to go today is the complete business and life-changing thing that happens when you start understanding how to bring customers back. And I'm not just talking about, the customers that like you, but sometimes it's the customers that have gone away because maybe maybe something changed in their life. Maybe their relationship with you changed in their minds that caused them not to come back. And so today is going to be all about that. It's not just about how do we continue to bring people back by focusing more of our effort on the existing folks. It's really some of those folks that have really gone away. How do we bring those back? And so to me, this is one of the most important things that takes a business from kind of that we're barely surviving, or we're a month out of, we're always a month away of going under. And there's a lot of really quote unquote successful businesses out there that's where they are. Their cash flow is not to a state to where they can survive a long time. Where things really start to change is when you start marketing to your existing people and getting them in different habits. And so, to me, this is huge. This is a topic that is, if you really listen to this, if you really pay attention to this, this is one of those things that will completely transform your business. And to be real honest, it's a much more comfortable way to do business than always having to deal with, new customer acquisition stuff. And so I think this is like a huge topic. It's something that, I'm very, very passionate about. It's something we talk about a lot at Serial Progress Seeker. It's something I talk about a lot to the businesses that we consult and, work with. It's how do you shift over from just that? You always got to be thinking new customers, but how do you shift over from that new customer thing to really putting a lot of attention into the taking care of the folks that you already have and making it a welcome place for them to come back and continue to spend money with you?
Well, and I think the big thing that we got to focus on as we get started today is making sure we don't put the cart before the horse, because before you can reactivate your customers, first you got to figure out why they left you, right? That's kind of the biggest deal. And hopefully everyone out there can understand the importance of, having that conversation with your customers, having that list that you talked about so that you can reach out to that customer base is so incredibly important, and for this exact reason. So let's talk about some of the reasons, at least in our experience, that we've seen why people stop buying from you. In Tab, I'll open it up to you to start us out. But what are some of the main reasons you've seen that people stop buying from you, whether which businesses you're involved in?
Yeah. So the first one I would say is probably poor customer service. So if your customers are coming to you and you're just treating them like absolute crap, you're not answering them, you're not available when they need you to be available. Those are all probably the main reason most people lose a lot of customers is the poor customer service.
Yeah. And on that note, I think sometimes people think they have good customer service, but they don't see, they have some blind spots, right? And so, I think it's really interesting. You kind of alluded to this. One of the things that I think really hits people is hours not being consistent. that is a poor customer service thing that a lot of people miss. And it's like there's so many businesses that I've been to in the past that I absolutely loved, and you show up and they've closed early, and they closed early because they weren't busy, but on their door it still says that they're supposed to be there. And I think the slow bleed that causes, that's a huge poor customer service thing. And I guarantee you somebody's listening to this right now being like, that's us. We've done that before. And yeah,
their doors are,
I'm not talking about
their doors are closed right now because they're listening to this podcast. That's what it is.
Yeah. And so, that's a big thing. Another thing that, I'm going to tell a story about a local place. And this was, I love this place. It's a place that I go to all the time, but I went in the other day, or I wanted to go in the other day and order food. And I called, and when the person picked up, they seemed incredibly busy. And so I was just like, cool, whatever. And she said, I'll be back in just a second. Give me just a second and I'll get your order. So I'm on hold. Now here's another dumb thing that's silly, because we all hate hold music. We all hate it, right? We hate hold music, but the lack of hold music is a completely different situation. The lack of hold music makes you wonder if you got disconnected, if you're actually still connected to the phone. So it's really funny when you think about this stuff. It's like, I would never think of not having hold music for a restaurant or something as being poor customer service. But if you're leaving somebody on the line longer than a minute, it's absolutely a thing that will disconnect them from your business. So I clocked this. Now, luckily, I was sitting there playing with my dog at the same time. So I really was just I wasn't in a bad mood by any means at this point yet. But I clocked this at 11 minutes on hold. And now, hang on though, places get busy. It was dinner time. It was a little later than dinner. But I was giving them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm like, it's cool. But I really wanted this food. And, I'm like, man, they're probably busy down there. Probably got busy, probably forgot about the phone. If I call back, I don't want to be rude. So I hung the phone up. I got my keys. I put my dog up, and I got in the car, and I'm like, I'm just going to drive down, sit at the bar, and I'll order my to-go food. Because I was getting food for my family who was coming home from soccer practice. And I go down, I sit at the bar, and, I'd been sitting there probably 5 minutes, and I watched the person who had answered the phone, because I recognized this voice. I watched the person answer the phone, talk to one customer for 5 minutes with leaving. It was a full bar. I mean, it wasn't slammed, but it was a full bar. And they talked to one person for 5 minutes, never even looked down. And finally, I just got up and left and took my business elsewhere. And it's those little things. And so the point here is, this is an excellent business, world-class service, 99% of the time, one employee. Every time they're working the bar, every time they're in charge of the phone, huge drop. And it's consistent. And when I got there and saw who it was, I was like, I got it. I know who this is. I know what's going on. I'm not going to get mad at the restaurant, but those things add up. I am an existing customer that's been there forever. I understand these things. I don't want to eat through this thing. So I think one of the things is, hours, that's for sure. What is your phone policy? What's your etiquette? If you don't do phone, what's your email policy? How quickly do you want to get back? With our support desk, we're very big on how quickly can we answer every ticket? What's our average ticket time? That's important. But the other one is you've got to start listening to your other employees. Here's the thing I know for a fact. You don't have to have customer complaints. There are other employees that work their butts off that are pointing that person out in your business right now. Are you listening to them? The other employees that are doing a great job will always root out the ones who are not. And, sometimes it's taken me a long time to listen to those employees and get rid of those problems. And, I think that's the thing. When you think poor customer service, I guarantee everybody listening to this right now probably already knows their holes. It's just there's something holding them back from getting rid of them. And so I fully agree. Poor customer service, you have to really understand with that one that it is all about making sure you're actually paying attention to it, because over time those things really do turn into a problem. I got another one. that I think is why people stop buying from you. It's lack of product relevance. Um, sometimes a customer's needs and preferences change, and they may no longer find the product that you have relevant to them. One of the big problems that we have in our business, you guys, is we do training of how to build a business at a certain level. Sometimes I do a poor job of letting people know there's another level for people that have surpassed that. So a lot of times people look at this certain level of things that hit their email inbox and they're like, I'm making $10,000 a month now. I'm making $20,000 a month. Yes, it was off stuff that Ben offered. I love Ben. I love his whole team. They're great. But one of their standard pitches is they build programs for people that are trying to get from 0 to 10K. I'm there. I'm going to go spend my money with somebody else that is teaching how to get from 20K a month to 100K a month. And, you kind of get in this product relevance thing. And so, that becomes a problem. I mean, have you guys ever been in a situation where you loved a brand and you got such good results from that brand that all of a sudden you couldn't spend money with that brand anymore? Like Tab, I mean, like, what are you what are you thinking?
No. I was just thinking in my head, like as a parent, somebody that used to buy baby products and used to go to all these things, then your kids grow up and you don't have that need anymore. You just grow out of wherever you were in that moment. Even though you loved all that stuff, you don't have that baby anymore.
Well, I think that's such a good example, and I wouldn't have come out at the top of it, but that's why I knew you had something that was good, because it's like there are companies that when my kid was that age, I loved. I would have been a customer for life if they just would have had things that continued with my kid, right? As my kid grew, and that's the thing is you kind of get to that spot where like the relevance of it is not there anymore. So that's another one. Marshall, what else?
Yeah, I think another one that I'd love to get you guys' thought on this too, because I almost see it as kind of like a scale. We got to talk about the dollars and cents when we're talking about products. We're talking about businesses. We're talking about services. What am I getting for what I'm spending at the end of the day? And I think, as business owners, you have to think about that. You have to put yourself in the shoes of your customers and make sure that kind of that matrix, that scale is balanced, So if you've got, prices that are too high or you've got quality that's too low, then you're going to send people running. You've got to find the medium spot. How do I price this at the perfect level where it's still considered a good quality, and you find that's where you start to find that you get lifelong customers, you get more long time value out of your customers and things like that. But I think a lot of times people run because either that scale has tilted too much one way or the other. Either the price is too high or the quality of what you're offering is just too low.
Yeah, one of the things that we had to really take a hard look in the mirror at when we were first started doing this digital thing was, I put out courses that teach people how to do stuff. And for a long time, I was doing these courses at maybe $27 to get through the door. And thousands of customers, like just thousands and thousands of customers would come through the door. But the level of quality that I could provide at that amount of money that was coming through the door was tough. And so, I wanted to do more. I wanted to put out a quality of product that was a $2,000 to $5,000 product that you could spend $200 to $500 on, and really feel like you got something that was special. So there came a point where I really had to say, this is our standard. And you go from a place to where you've got a few thousand people buying from you to a place where you've got you've got maybe 100 or 200 people buying from you. If you had a really good day or you have a really, interesting thing, maybe you got 300 to 500 people, right? So the number of customers, and that could be alarming to somebody because like, oh my gosh, we alienated all these customers, but at the same time we made more money and the quality of our product went up because more money was coming through the door. We could spend more money to do things. But where this really comes back around is this: did those $27 ideal customers go away? No, we just priced them out of, I've actually had customers that have been, I love buying from you, but like, this is not in my price range. They were kind of a hobbyist. They wanted to buy everything we did, but where we sort of started landing, they're like, it's just, I can't anymore. And it was a real concern. They really wanted to buy from me. And an interesting thing that, we try to do is we try to make sure that every so often we have those products that come out at like the $27, and you can get something that is, huge quality, but at the same time, it's for a different market. And here's the funny thing: a lot of those $27 products, when we put them out, we have to be really careful because our $200 to $500 people won't buy them. You'd think, oh, it's cheap. They love us, but they see it as cheap. And so we have to be very careful about that. So we have to really segment how we actually promote those products so that they don't hit certain folks at the same time, because, they're just not what they're looking for. They're looking for a certain level of quality. And so you have to be really careful about what you do with this. There's a particular, is it a purse company? I can't remember. I feel like there was a purse company that was really big when they first came out, and they had super great looking stuff. And all of a sudden, just the bottom fell out of it. Was it Michael Kors? I can't remember who it was, but I don't know if it was Michael. There was a particular brand, but what they did is they introduced a sort of a budget model to their thing, and it kind of completely destroyed their whole brand. And because the people that, saw them as up here, all of a sudden didn't see them as up here anymore. I've seen this happen to like Taylor guitars, almost screwed this up a little while back. They wanted to make more budget friendly things, which I'm all for. Like, I think everybody should have, a Taylor. Like, it's a brand that I hold up there, but they had to be really careful about the way they approach that, because Taylor is known for your $1,500 to $5,000 guitars. And like, that's a brand that you like aspire to and you save up for. And when you start putting out something that's maybe a $500-$600 guitar, if you don't do it correctly, you get that other market, but you alienate the market that you had beforehand. And so it's funny because it's like, yes, that will lose you customers, but like, it's such a, and I think if we don't talk about that, it's funny. It's funny not to talk about that.
I got a good sidetrack to bring up to you, and I want to get your thoughts on this too. So I just saw this, in my TikTok feed. I think it's sometime in the last week, or maybe it was over on YouTube. Saw Alex Hermosi, who I follow pretty regularly,
yeah.
And he
fun.
put something out the other day, and he was talking about the strategy that a lot of businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs have of overpricing. So you were talking about your levels. Say you've got your $200, your $500 level. Have you ever, in your experience as you've set up products and stuff like that, do you ever just shoot one up there that says, I'm going to put something out there that's $1,000 level? And he said the psychology behind it was, obviously it's pretty simple to figure out, but people see that $1,000 level, and then all of a sudden this $500 level looks much more appealing. And so he was talking, there was a specific TikTok, and I'll try to make sure we link it in the notes, but it was really, really interesting. And I thought that was a really nice psychological piece.
One of the main things that we do in pricing, or that I guess a better way to put this is something that we teach, is we like the 3 pricing model. Okay. So I like 3 prices on a product. I do 2 prices all the time. But if you can get 3 prices in there, it's good. And what you really want to do when you're doing this is you want to have sort of your first level that is, your basics. What this allows people to do is to test the waters. Maybe they're not all in on something, but they want to test the waters. And that's what that is. You don't really want people buying that level. You want people buying the next level. The next level is sort of, hey, this is where our actual pricing is. This is what I want people to buy, and it's there. But now what you've done is you've actually kind of created an interesting situation where some people are like, I can kind of get this for that, and I don't know. But if you add the next tier up, you don't really expect anybody to buy that. You don't. It's not there so anybody will actually buy that next tier. It's kind of a red herring. And the idea is that next tier is to frame that middle price as value packed. And so that's really where we're at. But with me, this is an interesting thing about a lot of what we do. A lot of what we do with Serial Progress Seeker on a weekly basis is we'll have products that there's 2 prices. And without a doubt, 99, 199, let's say that those are the 2 things that we do. The vast majority of our customers, like 90%, if not 95 to 98%, go with the $200 version. And the reason is because there are a lot of our existing customers who, They know that they could get the vast majority probably in the 99, but it's those little extra things, those little extra touches that they know really take things to the next level because of their experience with us. That's where they want to be. They want to be at the premium level for everything that we do. And so, I think, yes, it's interesting about, pricing psychology is huge. But at the end of the day, I think that, on that question and where you originally were coming from with this is when they get to the other side, does the value match what, you had? And if it matches it, you're not doing good enough. That's it. I mean, you're not doing good enough. Does the value exceed it 5 to 10 times as to what you charge? And when you're there, that's when you're really hitting a good situation. And not only will your customers be happy with their purchase, but they'll look for reasons to buy from you again when you deliver that there. So that's a great one. What else do we have here?
Yeah, we've got crappy customer service. We've got the product not being relevant. We've got the balance between pricing and value. What else? Tab, you got any other reasons people stop kind of buying from you before we move on?
Yeah, so I would say lack of engagement. So any business that has customers, it's a relationship, and any relationship where one person is talking and the other one's just completely silent is a bad thing. So if you're not telling your customers what's going on in your business, if you're not engaging on social media, if you're not emailing them, letting them know what's going on and the business is active and doing these things, you're going to end up losing those people because they're going to think that you just don't care about them or you don't have anything going on in order for them to purchase from you. So yeah, lack of engagement would be my last one.
I totally agree. Like there's a company that I love that I have spent way too much money with. It's called Strymon, Strymon, and they make guitar pedals. They make really good guitar pedals, like really good guitar pedals. And what they do is they use a certain kind of chip in their pedals that is really expensive, but it gets you a level of quality with the sound that comes out on the other end that if you get a very similar, like a pedal that does a very similar thing but doesn't have that level of tech in it, it just doesn't do it, right? And so they're really well-engineered pieces of equipment, and they're built like tanks. So the really funny thing is like I bought some Strymon pedals out of the box, loved them, right? Like they were just good, they sounded good, and you're just the kind of thing that when you're like, I don't sound that good, and I know it, but it makes you sound better. And so like it's one of those things, but they're really expensive. But the thing is like when you buy a Strymon pedal, you probably buy it because a musician friend said that, or maybe you saw them on social media. But it is that continued push from Strymon that has made me feel like my purchases are always great. And this is what's so funny. Not only do I see them like on my Instagram and Facebook feeds all the time because they're always posting social media, but they're always sending me emails, sending me to a YouTube video where they're pitching me basically their next pedal. And it's not about me. I don't feel like I've got to buy their next pedal every time they send me something like that. Like I realize it's a sales pitch. Listen, Strymon's marketing plan seems real familiar to me, real damn familiar to me. I've seen this somewhere before, but the idea is every time I go watch one of those videos, I learn something and I feel like I've got a mental inventory. If I ever needed to do something like what they're doing in that video, I know where to go. Like I know what to do. And so the fact is people want to know that the company that they bought something from, especially if they spent a premium on it, is doing well and is continuing to innovate. And that's the thing is like you're right. When you stop engaging with a customer because you don't want to bother them, or you feel like, oh, I get so tired of seeing something, slamming my Facebook feeds, you don't need to be in business if you think that way. If you continue to engage, if you continue to show people what you're doing, not only is it going to cause future purchases, but it's going to make them feel good about the purchase they've already made. And I think that is the big thing is like, when I look in my closet, there's a Strymon pedal in my closet right now that I'm not using because it's not something that's active. I would never sell this pedal though. Like there's just something about this pedal that is just like warm in my heart. And I know that when I need it, I'm going to pull it out. But that's the thing. Every time I walk in and see that pedal and I see Strymon across it, I'm like, yeah, I just saw them on my social media. They're doing good. They're innovating. They are a part of the community, of musicians, and they are somebody that's actively helping people make great music. When I watch a video of some of my favorite musicians and I see a Strymon pedal on their board, I get a warm feeling. And like when you can do that, you're doing some great things. And here's the thing: what are the odds that somewhere in the future, the probably very near future, I'm going to see an email from Strymon, or I'm going to watch a video of a musician that's playing on a Strymon pedal, and I'm going to say, I didn't know you can do that, and that's exactly what I need right now for something I'm trying to do, and make a purchase, that is $300 to $500, and they've got me again. But it is because they're an active part of the community, and so yeah, engagement, monstrous, like absolutely monstrous, and I think that that's a huge part. And I think that's I think that's kind of the core of the big ones for us. I think that we already kind of covered what my last one would be, which like sometimes your customers tap out because you don't have a higher offer. But we should probably put an exclamation mark on this: is there is not a business out there that hasn't lost a customer because they just didn't have the next tier, in their business. And so I challenge everybody that is wondering how to make more money in your business and you want to know how to re-engage your customers in the next, 3 to 6 months, come out with something that is your most expensive thing, but really pack the value in it and put it in front of your customers. And you'll see 20% of your customers take you up on it. And now you've opened up a whole section of your market, not because they were ever gone, just because they had nothing left to buy from you. And I think that's a big part of it. Also, and I will say this, all those other reasons we talked about that maybe you lost a customer, put out that premium offer. They'll start coming back to you asking questions about the premium, but they'll tell you why they left in the first place. Well, I actually stopped buying from you because of this, but I'm really interested in this. And so sometimes just putting those extra offers, those new things out there really open the doors up to give people an excuse to tell you why they left in the first place. So I know we got plenty to talk about, but like I think that those, if you really understand the things we talked about, man, that it puts you in a position to start doing something about it.
Yeah, and that's the perfect segue, because now we got to get into, okay, I've identified the reason some of these people left. Now I got to put something into action, and how am I actually going to get some of these people to come back? And a lot of this I know is going to depend on the data you keep, right? And the information that you have attained over this time, and the way you've identified why they left, and things like that. So obviously we talk about, focusing on customers who have a higher lifetime value. But when you think about identifying customers that you want back, what do you kind of go to? What's your go-to? What's your kind of default mode? Okay, I've got this list of folks that I want to make sure I go and get. How do you put that into action? What do you do?
The thing is immediately when I am thinking about customers and getting them back, I'm thinking about who do I want to come back. And I should get into this before I get into this. Every time we have a customer that comes to us with something unreasonable, something happens in the background. And I want everybody listening to this to really take this in. I think mostly business owners, but I think this is a good thing to actually realize as a consumer what actually goes on in the background. It's not fair, but this is what happens. When somebody has a complaint about your business and they make it vocal to you, the first thing that you're going to do is you are going to do either a mental inventory or an actual inventory to look at their past purchases from you. It's going to happen. I want to know, does this person have standing in my company to make this complaint? What I'm usually looking for is how unreasonable is this person allowed to be? And what I'm really looking for is what they're saying actually reasonable? Because of the amount of money that they've spent. And like I said, when people participate, when they're a part of the club, they've got more votes, period. When a customer has spent money with me for years and years and years, or maybe they're a part of 3 memberships that I have, they have more shares in the company. The way I think about it, they have more shares in our customer support to reach out. Now, maybe that's not fair. Maybe I should treat everybody exactly equally, but I don't. And nobody listening to this does either. You can say you do. I applaud that. That's what I would publicly say to you. Well, I guess this podcast is public, so blew that. But the idea is it's just not the way that it works. And over the years, there have been people that, we love and we will bend over backwards for. And there are people that we do not love. And so you can't have this conversation without looking at the lifetime value of an individual customer. And you can't underestimate going back to your support history. We take very detailed notes on everyone that buys from us, from, what their requests were, what they ask us in, the live calls that we did, what they've sent into the support desk in the past, what they've refunded from us in the past. Listen, I have no problem with refunds, but some of you folks out there hear me when I say there are people that red flags come up when you look at their refund history. And, there's just some relationships that you don't want to have. I think the number one thing that we really push away in our company, and this is important, you can't get into reactivation campaigns without talking about who you don't want, because if you attract those folks back, it's you're inviting more problems. Entitled people, I have zero time for. If entitled and you've spent a lot of money with me, I have a little more time for you. But entitled people, that is a big one. An example, I think we can all get into. I have tons of examples. But I think what I want to do right now is I want to talk to the two of you. Both of you have been in positions in the last year where you have been in customer support situations where both you have said, I've had enough, but I'm not going to cut them loose. I'm going to ask Ben's permission to cut them loose. Do I have permission to burn this bridge forever because I'm done? Or you've also been in some situations that I think both of you have had customers asking some extraordinary things of you, but you look at them and you're like, yeah, we're going to make that happen because of who you are and the way that they've dealt with this. Like both of you have come to me and said, I know we can't do this right now. What would it take to do this? Because I really want to deliver for this customer because the way they interacted me with is good. So I think before we get into like the processes of how we reactivate, you have to talk about some of the things that drive us crazy. So I would actually like to talk with Marshall. What is an example of a customer that has hit you up in the last year to 2 years that, yeah, right? What is an example? And no names, we'll never name names, but give me an example of something that happened to you that you were just like, this is not what this company was founded to serve, because we're very big on culture here and who we serve, and we are not for everybody. The customer is not always right. That's just how we work. Sorry. But that's how we work. But I feel like a lot of our customers really love us. So we must be doing something right. So Marshall, give me kind of a vibe of a customer that like hit you the wrong way. And what exactly did they do that took it to a place that was unreasonable?
Yeah, I can easily identify it. To me, it starts literally from the very beginning. We understand that we understand that we're in a position of people are going to come to us. They're gonna bring their issues to us. That if they're struggling with something, they're going to come to us and lay that at our feet, because we understand that that's what we signed up for. That's we're in the service industry at the end of the day. That's okay. But when you as a customer come in guns blazing, we talk about boundaries. There goes my wall. Bam. There it is right there. Because at the end of the day, whether it's me, whether it's, a customer support representative, whether it's someone working the front counter of your store, whatever it is, that person deserves the same respect as, the CEO, the president, things like that. So I've always had issues. And of course, in the service part of that, those kind of things happen because obviously they're trying to service their customers, and they're probably, it's probably rolling downhill, and you understand that kind of comes up a little bit. But I can remember some very specific instances when someone comes in guns blazing, they want answers yesterday for a question that they asked today. They want answers at 6 p.m. for a question that they asked at 7 p.m. Stuff like that. anytime you can, you're going to break your back to help someone when you can. But anytime you come to the table with guns blazing, it always kind of makes me put up that wall. So, there were several instances during that time of people coming in and demanding, phone calls after hours, or and then maybe not even showing up to those phone calls. Like there were situations like that, and those are the kind of things that, like, man, if I'm gonna break my back to help you, you got to meet me in the middle type thing. And without specifically calling out one instance, there was several of those, and it's a lot of times, and I always tried to remember. I always, the little angel in the back of my head, always tried to remember. You have no idea what this person is living through, what they're experiencing. So I always try to remember that sort of thing. But man, it's hard when someone comes guns blazing at you and they're like, you need to fix this issue right now. I'm the most important person on your list, even though I'm very low lifetime value. I'm a brand new customer. You don't even know what to expect from me yet, but you need to break your back for me type thing. So I think, those are the kind of things that kind of crawled all over me during my time.
Yeah, well, the minute he says somebody not showing up for a call triggered me. Oh my gosh. So with me, I had a specific customer, without saying names, who scheduled a call with me, and doing one-on-one calls was really big for me. And I was there. I showed up there. And I remember messaging one of our other teammates being like, it's really odd this guy's not showing up. I'm going to stay an extra 15 minutes, see if he shows up. He didn't show up. And he starts sending emails to every single person in the company talking about how I wasn't there for the call. I'm like, dude, I got a screenshot. I was there. Like, I had a conversation with another teammate and he's like, you weren't there. You didn't show up. And I'm like, I was there. I was there 15 minutes later than I had to have been, just to see if maybe he was having, technical difficulty. And this person went on to just wreak havoc in not just one of our companies, but another one of our companies. And finally he realized he was the one that had the error, and he was not, I guess there was a time zone difference or something along those lines. But instead of, reaching out to me and being like, I'm so sorry, he reached out to another member of the team and be like, tell Tabitha I said sorry. And I'm like, no, I'm done with you, dude. Because I even offered to do another phone call. Like, I had emailed him. I'm like, I see where you missed us. Let's set up another one. What does your schedule look like? Like, I was bending over backwards, and he was just ranting and raving that I hadn't showed up, and I had proof I was actually there.
Yeah. My number one thing, and I see this not a lot, which I think we have a really good customer base, and they're just good people. They're just really good people. But, when we bring in, we do some outside stuff, every so often somebody will be on a webinar and me, and Marshall, you really said this, but they'll treat me super nice. And then literally 2 seconds after they get off the call, they will go berate a customer support person. And I'm like, yeah, no, we don't play that game. Everybody here is on equal footing. And I think that's the thing, is it's like, we talked about people saying they're the most important person in the world. It's amazing how we lift almost everybody that hits our support up to that status of most important person in the world when they come in the right way. I'll say this, this is not just our industry. My friends that are in the restaurant and bar industry, because I have a lot of friends that do that, because, we do a lot of stuff with restaurants and bars, for our agency, but I have a lot of friends in that industry, and it's exactly the same thing. It's a level of entitlement that puts people at a disadvantage. And I'm going to be honest with you. It's funny to me, like, in our industry, you turn the computer off and it is what it is, but it amazes me how many people act exactly those ways in the food industry, and come back to this restaurant often, not realizing how easy it is to poison their food. It blows me away, you guys. Like, I don't know why.
Say spit in the food. He goes with poisoning them.
It's so true.
No, it's amazing to me how much trust people have that they won't get poisoned.
Yeah. Do yourself a favor.
I don't have that level of trust.
Do yourself a favor and go watch the movie Waiting. You will learn everything you need to learn.
There you go. So yeah, I think that's, I think that's a big thing, is understanding there's just some folks that it's okay if they go away, and your business gets better when your team does not feel like they have to show up every day and be berated, because that's the policy. We very much have a policy of, if you're not respectful, you not only do you not get respect back, we'll actually give you respect back right up to the end, but then you'll never hear from us again. I mean, there are just times when we go in and you are purged from everything. And I mean, there's been days when I've said, send them back their money for everything they've purchased in the last 3 months. Make sure all of their addresses are out of our database, revoke access to everything because they got their money back. And that's it. And, then people wonder, like they'll be on something in the future because they snuck back in and they'll wonder why they can't purchase anymore. And we'll say, well, sorry. This is why. I don't like having those conversations, but every so often you got to cut the cord. And I think that part of really getting into this reviving relationships and bringing people back is knowing who you don't want to be back and having that boundary. We're back to the boundary conversation, right? But that's incredibly important. Customers we have won back though that, I think I have a particular story of somebody that, we just got on the wrong side of. It was somebody that was hitting up our support desk and they just had this weird thing. It's like, it didn't matter if the product was 2 months old, 3 months old. If we ever offered a discount on something that they had purchased at some point and it was less, they expected a refund. And I'm just like, I mean, man, if I did that in my own life, I mean, good Lord, that'd be great. If I could go down to a car lot and buy a car, and 6 months later, when the car was, 6 months old or a year old down the road, and it was being sold for less money and I could get a refund on my car that I've been driving for a while, like that'd be amazing, but that's just not the way it works. And so this was a thing that went on and on for a while, and they would write into support, and it was one of those things where like we have to tell them no. And one time the no sent them over the edge. And, I hate to see when something like that happens. I knew the customer was being unreasonable, but that doesn't change the fact that there was conflict. And so, I ask, I do this quite often. I know you guys do too. I ask to get on the phone with them because, sometimes things get lost between a support desk or email. And I got on the phone and we talked, and lo and behold, and Marshall, you brought this up earlier, and I think it's important to realize as somebody that's doing customer service all the time, most of the time, the problems people have with our company, like 99% of the time, have nothing to do with us. And I got on the phone and I realized the whole mess that was going on in this person's life. And, when we connected as humans and we got to talk, like they realized it. They went back and apologized to our support team too, person to person, not through people, because I think that's important. And, I think it's incredibly important to realize and see the difference between the bad customers, the ones that you don't want, and the ones that are just having a bad week. And we all make mistakes, but I will say this. The value of an apology to the people that you've wronged, both sides. That's me. I apologized on my Facebook page yesterday because I screwed something up, I felt like, with a customer. And I've been trying to reach out to them, and, it is what it is. If it doesn't go the way I want it to, doesn't matter to me. I'm trying, I'm putting out the effort. We expect that same thing when a customer, and there's customers that I was ready to sell down the river by, and they made a real sincere apology and explained themselves. And I'm like, man, I get that. And so it's, it takes time to understand these things, but you have to understand these things before you go after the customers. And I think that takes us into sort of our next thing, which is, once you do understand that, how the heck do you get customers back that you want to get back, and how do you reactivate them? And there's several ways that I think we can talk about here, but Marshall, I'll let you take us into that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that people, we talk about this all the time, and this is something that's very high priority for us, and it's because we've got a team that is trying to execute at top level all the time. So how do we automate more? How do we set systems up? How do we take leverage and take advantage of the things that are at our fingertips to be able to make ourselves more efficient and make ourselves more, profitable, not only in money, but in our time and things like that. But so, and all businesses out there should be thinking along the same lines. So if I'm a business owner out there, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm thinking about how to reach out back to customers and get them back, and I want to start looking into some automation. Where do I start? How do I kind of get this ball rolling to where I can set some of these things in motion to where some of the work's done for me?
Yeah, I think we talked about this earlier, but frequency of hearing from you is important. It's incredibly important that they frequently hear about what you're doing. It's like I said with the Striving example earlier, they're very active on social media. They're very active with their email. But I don't think that there's probably somebody sitting there doing that all the time. I think a lot of it's programmed in. Even when they don't have something new to talk about, I think they've got things that are in their database that, you can click a button, or they're already programmed in to be like, well, this is what we're talking about this week. It's a pedal that came out 3 years ago, but here's something that probably most of our people that have come into the database since that video debuted have never seen it. And I think that's the thing, is it's realizing that too often we get in this mode of thinking when we do something, all of our past customers have seen it. All the people, and so with automation right now, I kid you not, I have a database of about 100 different offers, literally 100 offers. I'm not talking about 100 like buy buttons that, that lead to something, but there's 100 buy buttons. There's 100 courses. And I don't recommend this for everybody, by the way, but I just want to tell you to the level at which I believe in it. But there's at least, on the other end of that, there's at least 100 sales pages or webinars or email sequences that it leads you down the path of that. And so at any given time, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, my team could literally power this thing forever. Some of the courses, will become obsolete. That's going to happen, but there's a level of things that are there. So my point with that is this: what we can do is we can literally look at our calendar and say, our goal is to make sure that we approach the people that are in our past customer database with something every single week. Are we doing that to get them to purchase every single week? Absolutely not. Like, I know that that's not going to happen. Every one of my customers is not going to buy something from me every single week. It's just not going to happen. But I want them to hear from me. I want them to see my name pop up in their inbox, for the text to arrive at their phone. And that is incredibly important for me, is that I have a level of automation in my email systems, in my SMS systems. And, you can do this with mail too. You can automate a lot of this stuff. But what am I sending out to people all the time? And how can I sit down and program it in so that it's on the map to go out? I don't have to think about it. And that's what's so funny, is you'll have a product that sells really well once, and you're like, well, that was it. Because at the end of that sale, I could see the sales were starting to slow down. And that's what you do in your head. It's like, oh, well, we pushed it all we could. And you don't realize that, well, half of your customers were on vacation that week, because it was spring break, or something silly like that. Or like maybe it was snowing in the Northwest that weekend. And there's a whole pocket of customers that we had that like didn't have internet, And so these are the things that I try to think about. Is like, I know what I was doing that week. I have no idea what most of our other customers were doing. I have no idea what problems were on their mind. And so the mere fact that we have things that we can continue to communicate without me having to constantly come up with them, because I came up with them once in the past, or my team came up with them in the past, having those sets of automations built in is good. Now, the other side of that is this, and this is where we get a little more complicated, but for anybody that's ever interested in having this conversation with me, I'd love to have it with you. We have things in our system that, if a customer is in our database and we've got their email address and they visit a web page, maybe we've not heard from them in a while, but they go visit a web page and they land on that web page, there's something in our system that sees it and says, they must be interested in something, and it will trigger an email to send it to them that way. Like, maybe we've not heard from them in a while, but maybe they got busy. They went and saw this webpage, and we know if they visit this webpage, maybe this offer is a good fit for them. They were already in our database. So that trigger does it. We have other triggers in our system that says, when a customer spends above this amount of money, send them this offer, after a certain amount of time. They hit certain triggers. We also have something that says, hey, this particular customer has not opened an email from us in this amount of time. Trigger this message set that is more designed to be like, hey, where you been? Something that's more pointed. And so there's all these things that are based on this that are super important. And, like specifically the tools that we use to do all those fun things, I'm using two primary things from a perspective of reach out. That is ActiveCampaign. That's been a good one for us. And also Customer Engine. Customer Engine, full disclosure, is something we built for ourselves from some of the shortcomings of ActiveCampaign, that we do a lot of that to incorporate text, to incorporate integrations in places that we haven't had before. and email too inside of Customer Engine. And so those are the two of the tools that, like, in terms of like programming pieces of my brain or a promotion and putting them into something that can send out an automation based on a trigger that happens, a customer being like, hey, I'm a little interested again. And then them sending them something and it being like magic. Ooh, it's funny. I was just thinking of you guys. They don't remember that they were on the blog, but we just happened to send them an email that was very focused. Right. And so it's one of those things that with those two tools, it's very, very powerful. I think probably the next thing, and I really want to talk to Tabitha about this because I really love the way Tabitha does a lot of this, is we get very much into automation. And I feel like us as marketers and like tech enthusiasts, we get really in love with automation. But that's not really where we've made our money. I mean, we make good money with those automations, but where the most of our really effective reach out and reactivation comes, and I think why people just like would fight you for us, like, I mean, for real, they would fight you for our company. Like the people that love us. It has to do a lot more with the personal stuff that we do and kind of some of the really personal reactivation. And like Tabitha has done some very interesting things with some of her projects in terms of, how she reaches out to somebody that's just bought. I think that, a lot of people don't think of that as reactivation, but it's like, it's indoctrination, it's onboarding. We call it that sometimes, but I actually put it into the category of reactivation for a very specific reason. So Tab, in terms of like some of the things that you've done that were very personal, not just like in-person stuff or picking up the phone. I know we've all done that, but like, what's some stuff that you've done? And there's a specific app that I'm thinking of that I can't think of the name, that we have used to do like video stuff. That's very interesting. But yeah, like I can't not think of the name of it. If we can't think of the name of it, we'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, it's okay. No. It's a tool that we used to actually send out very specific video messages to people in their emails. And so I don't particularly care about the tool. We can always throw that in the show notes. I mean, I care about the tool. I want people to have the tool, but we'll put that in the show notes. But Tab, walk me through how that tool worked in terms of, we used it for onboarding, but we also used it in terms of this. And maybe Marshall, I think Marshall's used this too.
Yeah, I used it because Tab told me about it, which was awesome. So initially we were using a pretty great tool called Bonjoro, and that was going really, really well.
Bonjoro.
And it was awesome. But then somewhere along the way, we also shifted to what was called QuickPage. You guys remember using that one? I was using that one for quite a while with some of our projects too, but both of those were excellent. But yeah, Tab, I'll let you talk a little bit more to that.
Yeah, so both of those were great, and we used each one of them for a different reason. But what it did was it allowed us to actually shoot personalized videos. And one thing that I did is every time somebody new signed up, like the minute the email came through or the notification came through to say, hey, we just had somebody sign up, I would open the app or open it on my computer, and I'd record a video, and I'd look straight at the screen, and I'd be like, hey, Brian, thanks so much for signing up for Social Rotation. I'm Tabitha. I'm here to help you through, whatever it is that you're going through. Here's some great resources. Here's some things to find. I'll be checking in with you later. If you need anything, here's my customer support. Like just giving them a hand holding, kind of saying, hey, I'm here for you from the very beginning, no matter what it is that you need within that particular software. And yeah, I think it worked like a charm. Almost everyone opened it. Not everyone responded to it, but I know everybody opened it. But those that did respond had a lot of really great things. It was like, you're talking directly to me. I was like, I was talking directly to you.
Well, and I don't know if you guys remember this, but there's a specific wiring that we did when we first set this up. I know, especially with Bonjoro, because that's where I was like super involved in setting this up the first time. And there was a specific wiring that we had done that we connected with our shopping carts that actually would fill up a queue for you in Bonjoro. So, you would get a notification on your phone that, hey, you got a new customer through the door, and then you open the app up and all of their information had already been kind of synced to the app so that you had everything there. So you could still be very personal. And this is time consuming. I don't want to lie. Like, I don't want to downplay, because, the two of you did most of these for the various companies that we did this for. And, we have since passed that on to other people. But when you guys were doing this, it ate up your day. But I think the thing that I really want to put out there in the context of what we're talking about here is that one thing, that one very over the top personal gesture that we did there sets us up for years. And that's the thing, is like when we go to continue to reactivate people, whether it be via automation or something personal we're doing down the road, that one very personal thing that we did in the beginning was huge, was very, very huge in terms of setting people up to understand who we were and who we are. And the other thing, I'm going to comment on this, and I want to hear from the two of you because both of you have been in this situation just as much as me, if not more, is just about with every product that we sell, there is a disclaimer that says, anytime you have a question, even after this live session is over, if you're watching the recording later, you come up with a question that's not in this, send it to our support desk. That's number one. If you're still having the trouble after you've contacted our support desk, maybe it's a weird back and forth thing, we will get on the phone with you. We will get on a Zoom call with you. That doesn't get taken up like by someone real often, but when it does, it's life-changing. Because it helps you to help somebody bust through a problem. And people remember that. The last, and this is much more personal, but the last couple of weeks, I don't know if it's what's going on with the economy right now. I don't know what's happening, but I've had a few customers that are just like, I'm having a tough time. And I don't know which direction to go. I've got like 5 options of things that I could do. I'm a smart person, and it bums me out that I'm not doing as well as I think I should. Can we just talk and like get a direction here? And, those are some of the most rewarding calls that I've done, just because we get to talk about like human stuff, not just tech, but helping someone to see what their true potential is, because sometimes it gets a little muddy getting on those calls and getting in that. And I'm going to tell you all, as an entrepreneur, sometimes we really focus on the automation part. We really focus on the tech part of things. We really focus on just getting the new ones through the door. But when you can give your customers a level of attention, I don't care if it's 30 minutes or an hour out of your day, it's not going to happen often. But when it does happen, it's going to lock them in forever. And that's not some crazy business tactic. That's just being a human. But it's really setting your day up and hiring the help that you need so that you have time to do those things. And I really, really want to create a customer culture. I know we have our culture here within our world, but I want to create a customer culture that people would fight for me behind my back and fight for Serial Progress Seeker behind my back. I had somebody say something kind of asinine on a Facebook post the other day, and it was everything I could do. Like I posted something and they said something just completely out there that was just like antagonizing to me. Like they were just really calling me out. And I really wanted to fire back. I had about 10 smart ass answers that went through my head. And finally I said, put your phone down. And I put my phone down. And sure enough, within 10, 20 minutes, I had a customer in there defending us. Not like in a way like, oh, you're just being but it was very much saying, I think you missed Ben's point, and so I think this is the thing, is when you do this right, people will fight for you behind your back. And, I think that is the big part about this thing. That particular customer, it's really funny. It's like, I've met in person. We don't get to meet a lot of our customers in person here. It's just not the nature of what our business is. But I've met that person in person. I've gone out of my way to do more stuff with that customer before. And I do consider them a friend, even though I don't know that they would consider us a friend. But it's stuff like that blows you away. And when you're doing that, when that's the level of culture that you've established on the customer side, you're doing something right. But where that comes from is the personal stuff. It comes from the talking in person. It comes from the videos that get sent out. And I think that if you don't have a program or system in your business where you are personally reaching out to people, you're in trouble. One of my favorites was, I had a chiropractor I worked for when I first started the chiropractic thing way back when. And if they hadn't been in so many months, they got sent something in the mail with an offer, but they also got a phone call. And it wasn't a pitch. It was, hey, we haven't seen you in the office in a while. I'm just calling to check in and see how you were doing. You guys doing good over there? That's it. And that's all you got to do to drum up business from people that haven't been in your vicinity in a while. The other side of what will happen is if they do have a problem with you, that will bring it out. Well, actually, I've been meaning to talk to you. No, you hadn't been meaning to talk to me, but now that you have me on the phone, you will talk to me. And it's amazing what comes out. And, I've had stuff where people just like got the wrong idea about something and they got mad about it and they never said a word. We had a staff person, that was just making phone calls one day and they said, I think maybe you need to talk to so-and-so because I think something happened. I'll get on the phone and be like, well, you did this. I'm like, no, what? And it was another bin, it was a completely other person. And you're just like, and it's crazy what can happen to destroy relationships. But if you're following up with people, especially the ones that you haven't heard from in a while or you haven't seen come across your cash register in a while, it's amazing what can come out of that. But you have to really step back and say, we're doing this. We're going to call everybody that has everybody in our database that hasn't been in 3 months or hasn't been in 6 months. We're going to actually call them on the phone and just check on them. And that could take 3 weeks, but it is worth it because you want to see a business explode in 30 days and 60 days. That's the kind of thing that does it. So, that's some of those in-person tactics that I think are important.
Yeah. And well, honestly, I mean, that's the reason we wanted to bring this topic to the table, right? We came across this video that someone we know and respect put together. Gary Vee had this video out there and he was talking about, reactivating customers and stuff and getting on the phone with them. And you don't always have to go to the table with an offer, right? And I think that's why, Ben, what you said there it really resonates with me because yes, we have to run businesses. Yes, we have to make money. But at the end of the day, the more you can be personable and just be a person, calling someone to check up on another person, the exponential returns that you're going to get for your business, can't even be measured. It's just absolutely crazy. And I think that was the whole basis of why we wanted to talk about this today. So I'm really glad you brought that up because I think there's so much value, for people in that from a personal standpoint and a professional standpoint.
Well, I'll add a cap to this, and then I kind of want to hear what Tabitha has in this because I think this is a fun situation. I talked about Strymon earlier. I talked about Taylor earlier. It's a couple brands that I mentioned on this call. They have me in their database. Did I necessarily buy those products direct from them? No, I bought them from dealers, right? But what's really interesting is I have registered those products on their website. What is the likelihood that if I were to receive a call from Strymon or Taylor tomorrow, this is somebody that they could literally hire just to do this. If I was to receive a call from one of them tomorrow saying, hey, we know you're a customer. We wanted to see how your experience was lately with Strymon pedals. We wanted to see how everything was going with your Taylor that you bought 3 years ago. What is the likelihood that I'm going to spend money with those companies in the next 3 months because of that phone call? It goes up astronomically with one phone call. Now, yes, this is somebody that you have to hire to do this, but the amount of income that is generated from that size of a database of people that have not purchased. I've probably not purchased a Strymon pedal at this point for probably about 2 years. And I guarantee you, if I got a call from the Strymon people, it's going to pull me closer. And I think that strategy of picking the phone up, it's something that's getting lost. And I probably wouldn't answer the phone, by the way. I probably would not answer the phone. But that message would sit in my inbox. I would listen to it. And I would say, damn, Strymon called me. Taylor called me? Are you kidding me? And I would go down to my local music store and I would buy something. I'd probably buy it from my local, but they have to buy it from them. And so it's one of those things that maybe sometimes it's hard to track, but it's something that absolutely those phone calls puts you in a completely different place. And if let's say I had a problem with Taylor, we could hash it out over the phone. And I guarantee you, if I actually get on the phone with somebody and hash it out and there's a good resolution at the end, I'm definitely going to buy another one of their products. And it's crazy to think that just a phone call does that.
Well, and think about how much research you could get too from those phone calls. You could say, I absolutely love this pedal, but if it did this or this guitar had this particular, I don't know nothing about music instruments, but if it had some kind of, whatever, and they're like, I've never thought about that. If it had done that, let's take that to the research department and see what we can do with that. That you can get so much feedback, not only about your customer service, but how to make the actual product better itself.
Well, I should bring this up based on what you just said. I'm so glad you said it. Every single week, this is where we get into sort of like some of our strategies that we use every single week without fail. If I have a software platform, I'm on a call with the people. That doesn't mean that they all show up every week, but every single week there is a call without fail for an hour, somewhere in there, 30 minutes to an hour. Some of them are only 15 minutes, but I am there and I am available. And it is advertised. There's a text message that goes out. There is an email that goes out. There are posts in the Facebook group, which is another strategy. When we have something that we're doing, we're building a Facebook group around it so that all of our customers, if they have questions, they don't have to go through the customer support process. That's definitely the most appropriate place for it. But sometimes you're just like, I need an answer quick, and I don't want to go through the rigmarole. I get that. I so get that. So they come to the Facebook group, and we post all these places. And I'm going to tell you guys, the best ideas that we've got for some of our software platforms had very little to do with what I needed the software to do. I built the software for a certain reason that I wanted. But when we let people in, the first couple years, especially in the life of some of these softwares, it was the ideas that the customer base was bringing that took us to the level that we needed to be to. We talk about what are we doing that's world-class? That's something that, like, I think probably you guys get super annoyed that I say all the time, is what we're doing world class. And what you start to understand is you cannot get to world class by yourself. And I don't mean like, even as a team, we can't get to putting out world class stuff by ourselves. We have to very much get the feedback from our listening audience, you all that are listening to the podcast right now. If you're watching us on YouTube, we have to get feedback from you about what you want more of or what we're missing the boat on. And that's like when you start bringing in those opinions and you're seeking them out actively in Facebook and, maybe on YouTube, definitely TikTok, we get lots of fun stuff there. But when you're actually seeking that stuff out, that's when you're able to sort of cross over into sort of this plane, which is what we consider world class. And when I say world class, I mean there are very few people on the planet that can put out the stuff that we are. Have we put out some stuff in the past that was not world class? Yes, but it was us building towards this level. A huge component of that is paying attention to the feedback that we're getting. And once we start getting that feedback, it's much easier to put out things that literally you cannot get from anybody else out there. And so I think that from a perspective of, it was exactly what you said, those phone calls, it's not just about like getting people to come buy from you again. It's really hearing what they have to say, because it's those unique problems that you can solve that nobody else, none of your competitors even realize exist, because they're not polling these people. They're not talking to these people that are your customers that have money to spend. That's when you get sort of the competitive advantage that makes you, that world-class level thing. And so I'm so glad you brought that up. But yeah, I think that, kind of that manual reach out, it's so time consuming. It's not the sexy automation stuff, but man, does it matter.
Yeah, I think everything we touched on today, 100% matters. It's so crazy to think about, where we started this conversation. We talked about the fact that, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we spend so much time trying to bring new people through the door. And we just went through, we just spieled, for a little over an hour about how much focus in our business we put on being able to reach out to some of our past customers and how important that is to build us to where we are and where we want to go. Right. So I think, what a valuable conversation, I think, for anyone that's listening. And if you're listening out there right now and you're looking for some specific strategies on how we're going about and doing that, reach out to us. We help people with this kind of stuff all the time. And we'd love to be able, if we talked about getting on the phone with you, we will literally, the three of us, one of us will get on the phone with you and help you out with, because that's what we believe in doing. So what a cool conversation. Thank you guys for talking about this. I think, reviving an old customer base and inserting new life into folks that have maybe left you for whatever reason it may be is such a valuable conversation for anybody that could be out there listening to this for sure.
Thanks so much for checking out this episode of the Serial Progress Seeker podcast. If you want to listen to more episodes, learn more about our mission, or send us questions or feedback about the show, go to serialprogressseeker.com. You can help the mission by subscribing, reviewing, rating, and commenting wherever you listen to or watch podcasts.